Very good. Push. Push. Very good.
God.
Jurassic Park wasn't a monster movie. It was a movie about animals long ago gone extinct that through the miracle of science and technology are brought into the 20th century. And that's what Michael Crichton had conceived in this amazing book he wrote. And all of a sudden, the second I read his book, I realized that we weren't dealing with monsters, and this was not going to be a genre of horror, science fiction, fantasy, or back to the famous Monsters of Filmland magazine culture. But instead, this was a really credible look at how dinosaurs might someday be brought back right alongside modern mankind. And that really fascinated me, and that immediately set my own template for not making this a monster movie.
Roll, big, marker, and background. Action.
One of the things that the book deals with, and the film too, and one of the sort of shaping concepts, is that this kind of research is tremendously expensive. And the question arises, who will pay for it? And at the moment, for better or worse, there isn't any pressing need to recreate a dinosaur. And in trying to think about how that might happen, or who would pay for it, the only thing that I could think of was that it would come from a desire for entertainment.
We can charge anything we want, $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and people will pay it.
This park was not built to cater only for the super rich. Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these animals.
Michael Crichton had come up with this spectacular notion that if you created a theme park where the DNA could recreate dinosaurs and you would have a place to keep them in an environment where people could feel safe, just like with other wild animals of the jungle, you could go and actually see a dinosaur.
Dilophosaurus.
It felt real, it felt extraordinary, and it had tremendous dramatic potential.
There's no doubt our attractions will drive kids out of their minds.
Well, I was planning to make the movie, as much as possible with full-size animatronic dinosaurs. And the only person on the face of the planet that could pull that off was Stan Winston. He had an amazing shop. He had great artisans, and he had great technologists working with him.
We're all dinosaur fans. Everyone who does the type of work we do is a dinosaur fan. So we said we'll do some drawings just to see if our concept and our feeling is in sync with what Steven's looking for in this film.
I was working for Stan Winston, who I had a very long career with, and Stan had to start designing dinosaurs. And Mark Crash McCreary was essential in that. And I was fortunate to have a hand in, coming up with color schemes and things like that.
The drawings I had done initially were more about action and kind of, this is the idea we want to ultimately to walk away with, is that, wow, these things were real animals that could think and move. And we went through a lot of iterations, just drawing-wise.
The ground floor of the process was to come up with the look of each dinosaur and to weave in information now that was coming out about the dinosaurs to try to make these as accurate as possible.
And look at the half-moon-shaped bones on the wrist. It's no wonder these guys learn how to fly.
Well, the first person we went to was Jack Horner, not just to achieve an authenticity, but we wanted a credible resource that could back up several theories that we were sort of expounding. And one was that dinosaurs eventually evolved into birds.
And even the word raptor means bird of prey.
And that's something that Jack Horner believes in and could defend if necessary. And Jack Horner became our credibility.
Then we started working on maquettes, and we had done a little small 1/16 scale Tyrannosaurus Rex maquette. Then we did a 5th scale maquette that had all of the details on it, so Steven could really see what it was going to be. And then we projected that up large.
You like it?
I love it.
It's coming along really good, isn't it?
The first time I saw the T-Rex was at Stan Winston's shop. My kids would say, "Where does the poo-poo come from, Daddy?" I had a chance to actually operate it myself, which was a thrill. Where the movements were so smooth and so authentic. When it would snap its head around, it didn't have a recoil. the head would go as fast as you can imagine and would come to a complete stop and look right at you. And his eyes would stereo focus right on you. That was absolutely frightening to watch. And he also kept it moving. Even when it was still, it was breathing, it had muscles flicking, and he kept every animal alive.
We were building all of the dinosaurs, all the animatronic ones, kind of in parallel because there was so much work to be done. We actually had a baby Triceratops going, which never made it to that movie. That scene got cut out. Plus, there's the famous scene in the movie where the big foot comes down into the mud. So that was going to become a separate animatronic piece.
The spitter, velociraptors, the brachiosaur, or the T-Rex. Stan could give them utterly authentic movements far beyond where we were technologically in 1973-74 with Jaws. But how we were going to get the dinosaurs to run, how we were going to get them to even be in the movie in wide shots was always going to be the old-fashioned way, through stop-motion animation. The same way that Willis O'Brien made King Kong, just taking that little armature on a small maquette and just moving it just a millimeter at a time. And Phil Tippett was hired by me to do that because he was the best in the business.
The first call I got was from Kathy Kennedy at home. And I just finished working on this big stop-motion project and was absolutely beat. And Kathy calls up and goes, she's all like perky, goes, "Hey, Phil, we got this really cool thing we're going to do with dinosaurs. It's really going to be a lot of fun." And I went like, "Yeah, really? Okay." Fine. And we all started to plan it out as the conventional stop-motion, go-motion, rod puppet, high speed with a little bit of computer graphics.
And then one day I got a call from Dennis Muren at ILM, who already had the job of doing Jurassic Park with Phil Tippett.
You know, it encouraged us to even work harder and, you know, make everything that much more convincing in a realistic, on-stage puppet sense.
The reason that Steven still wanted, obviously, Phil involved was because he realized that his crew had information and experience that was just as important. It's just the toolbox had changed. So what was developed was the DID, or Dinosaur Input Device, which was a traditional stop-motion armature with motion encoders, which would translate anything we animated into a computer model. So it bridged the gap of stop-motion animation into the digital age.
It was exhilarating when we realized that there was a new way to do this and that we were going to be able to create a lifelike looking dinosaur on a level that we never before imagined, and that we were on to a whole new way of looking at Jurassic Park.
So you two dig up dinosaurs?
Well,
Try to. I bring scientists, you bring a rock star.
If you make a humorless movie about dinosaurs coming back to life in 1993, nobody's going to care about your movie.
I think establishing characters like Laura Dern and Sam and Jeff, it lent a whole sense of credibility to the storytelling because you really believed that they were scientists.
why?
And did I go too fast? I go too fast. I did a flyby. No, give me that big glass of water. We're going to conduct an experiment.
Those characters, when they're postulating, better have a little wit. And David Koepp gave it all the wit. Gave Jeff Goldblum his lecherous crush on the paleobotanist played by Laura Dern. And with Sam Neill being right in the middle, watching this guy hitting on his girl, where Jeff doesn't even know that it's his girl. I mean, that was all David Koepp's kind of invention.
Hammer? Look at that one, Kelly. Look at that one, quickly.
We had to pretend to be scared, and Steven Spielberg going through a bullhorn, you know. So that was kind of more funny than anything. And the acting part was not laughing.
Very nice.
It's not easy.
The three of us are in the Jeep and we start to glance, and as we glanced in the tree and I'm supposed to look up at its neck, there was a giant paper X on it, you know, like a Sharpied X on a piece of white paper. And I just remember looking up like, okay, and that's the dinosaur.
You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
And we did close-ups, and I remember he'd never rehearsed. Ready, Jeff? Okay, there you are. You're seeing the dinosaur. Oh my gosh, just keep rolling.
That looks great.
You're looking at it. You can't believe what you're seeing. Is it real? It now strikes you funny. You don't even know why. You know, and he's just talking me through it, and I'm kind of acting. I enjoyed that a lot.
You know, the first sort of few days of filming, you really had to get your bearings because it was all so new for us. I mean, just to be in sync with what we were looking at and what it would feel like and look like. We had no idea what we were going to see. Can we go see it? Can we go?
Yeah, relax. There's plenty of time this afternoon. My dear,
T-Rex.
welcome to Jurassic Park.
The actors certainly did their jobs, and they believed who they were, and that's all an audience needs, is to believe that the characters are believing in themselves, and that's what the actors did so well. We've been in pre-production for 50 million years on this movie, Jurassic Park, by golly.
He just hung out with us. He bonded with us. He played games with us a lot on the set. And in between playing games, he would throw in a question about our upcoming scene. And he worked with us so seamlessly that we would do anything for him in the performance on the scene.
So you really admire him. To you, he's like a movie star because of your interest in paleontology. This is everybody else's equivalent of a Tom Cruise or a Kevin Costner or a Sam Neill.
I think that he just had a lot of respect for kids and had a lot of respect for their talent, you know, and their intuition. I always felt so much freedom with him. I always felt like I was a part of the collaborative process, you know, that it wasn't just he was telling me what to do or he was talking down to me. It was always, what do you think? And what do you think we should do for this scene? And he trusted my ideas and he let me do that.
And then my teacher tells me about this other book by a guy named Backer.
And he said, slammed on his face, and he slid. Good.
And it was that kind of relationship where I felt like a part of the gang rather than like an outsider looking in that I think brings out such great performances in children.
Grandpa!
Kids!
And I'm a big fan of Richard Attenborough's. I knew Dickie before I cast him in Jurassic Park and liked him a lot and just saw him as John Hammond. Let's get the camera right in here, see if we can get Richard right in here.
Watch yourself, please.
Richard, you might have to, yeah, there we go, yes sir. Being an actor and a director, he knows to move that much farther to that side. You know, it was interesting to watch Hammond's character suddenly realizing that he might have gone mad. He doesn't utter those words, but he's certainly feeling, what have I done? And only Richard Attenborough, I think, could have pulled that off with such dignity and also with such tragedy.
Hold on to your butts.
Sam Jackson was in it, you know, before he became a big star. You could tell Sam was going to get eaten by a dinosaur because they had him smoking earlier on when he's working.
How many lines of code are there?
About 2 million.
And the guy that smokes always gets eaten. That's one rule about dinosaur films.
Mr. Arnold.
Because it takes place ostensibly on an island, we were thinking about shooting in Costa Rica. But Stephen was a little concerned about the infrastructure, that is, whether we'd have roads and whether we could get equipment there and other kinds of facilities that we would need. So we opted for a place where he had worked before, the island of Kauai in Hawaii. And that became the exterior jungles during the day.
For you,
hey, look!
simply appropriate icon.
Are we gonna hit that?
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park was a tour attraction. It was about that. So each step that you got involved with was about constructing the actual journey as ride or amusement entertainment.
Rick Carter designed the movie, and the job that he was faced with was creating a theme park built in Costa Rica. So the theme park had to kind of echo the local cultural design sensibilities of what we might adapt in an environment like that.
Working with Rick Carter was great because he was so generous with giving me so many areas to get involved with, you know, again, from the storyboarding to props and vehicles and sets and all that. There's the scene where Nedry goes out into the jungle at night, and we had to get something for him to put the DNA in. It just said in the script, it just said a shaving can. So I went over to Laurel Canyon, the Long's Drugs down there, and I went through the different aisles, and I found a Barbasol can of shaving cream. At the time, I liked the name, and I liked how it graphically it stood off from the shelf from the others, and so just as a whim, this became the can that Nedry used.
There's enough coolant inside for 36 hours.
No menthol?
So you can see, take the top off, and the guys down the shop did a cool mechanism for it. I think that's a Compsognathus right there. Very cool.
Okay, quiet please, rehearsal.
I think the first time we saw one of Stan's dinosaurs, we were filming in Kauai. It's a scene where we wander out and there's a sick triceratops which is breathing, and you could go right up to it and its skin was all wrinkly and real. It was extraordinary.
That was one of the cases where there was a dinosaur there, full size, laying down, and the 7 or 8 people who were operating it were unseen, kind of hidden from the actor's immediate view. And one person was working the blinking eyes and the tongue and the breathing body. And when we first came upon this thing, wow, it looked real.
It was kind of a defining moment for us because this was the first dinosaur to really be put on film. And it was the first dinosaur to interact with all the actors.
And action.
And, you know, we were very confident in what we were doing, but at the same time, there's a pressure. You know, it's your baby. You're unveiling this to everyone.
Oh, wow.
You show up and you're just kind of taken aback a second because it's so lifelike. It's so real. You feel the energy from it. And you kind of don't want to even get too close. But when you like kind of get more comfortable, all you want to do is put your hands on it and just like touch it and see like, is this real? Like, how is this? Even the texture, you know, the feeling of it. I just remember being blown away.
You're right. There's no trace of lilac berries.
I think Steven gets a kick out of that. My dream was to work with Steven Spielberg. And so for 20 years now, at any restaurant I've ever been in, there's a child under 10 that comes up to me and says, "Are you the lady who stuck her hand in the dinosaur poopy?" It's like, that is the question I get most commonly in my career.
Thanks. What are her symptoms?
Oh, imbalance, disorientation, labored breathing.
When I did my scene with the Triceratops, I also had the great privilege of working as an actor alongside Jerry Mullen, who is in that scene with me. And because he's one of the crew, having started in other capacities before producing, he knew how to run a set. And we could have never shot in the difficulties and the limitations of Kauai. We could have never done it without Jerry.
And then about 3 weeks in, Hurricane Aniki came in. We turned up for work one morning, and we were told, we're not going to work today because there's a hurricane coming in. Actually, it seems to be heading straight for us.
The hurricane hit dead on. Landfall was our hotel, and it was a Category 5 hurricane, sustained winds of 165 miles an hour with gusts to 185, and the hurricane lasted for 9 hours. I'll never forget when the eye of the storm passed directly over the hotel. We got out and looked up. It was beautiful, blue sky above, and just a wall of white clouds surrounding the hotel, slowly moving about like this. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was a special effect.
We were confined to the ballroom of the hotel we were staying in. Apart from the fact that it was slightly exciting, a lot of it was rather boring.
And then that night, we camped out and figured out where we were going to stay as all the lights were off. So I remember Steven Spielberg, he had the flashlight. He was going, "I'll show you how lighting changes a story. Horror story, love story. Horror story, love story." And then we woke up the next morning when the sun came up, seeing the devastation, and it was amazing.
It was interesting to see that all the skills that go in to creating the community that makes a movie ended up creating the community that ended up really helping everybody after an event like that.
And it really changes a dynamic on a movie when you've survived something together. And I have never felt prouder as a member of a crew that I was privileged to work with than on the day of the hurricane.
Richard Attenborough slept through the whole thing. I have to commend him. When the hurricane passed, I said, "Dickie, you slept through the whole hurricane." He said, "Oh, dear boy, darling, I survived the Blitz." So this was nothing compared to the Blitz. That's a true story.